welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our flagship stations, 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. Both of our TV channels on Comcast, Channel 15, and AT&T, Channel 99. We're also, as always, today on Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Also on the radio in Bloomfield Hills in the Birmingham area on 88.1 WBFH. The Biff. Online, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Watch Live link at the top of the homepage, or view in the small player at the top right of the homepage as well. And on Facebook, facebook.com/civiccentertv15 and facebook.com/lakesfm. And as always, joining me in the studios is Ronnie Dahl.
Tyler, I was going to sit in the chair today.
Yes.
Okay, so you're right. But I'm telling you, I'm just not coordinated enough.
Yeah, these higher chairs are difficult to get into sometimes. You got to kind of do it very gingerly because one wrong angle, one wrong little bit of pressure, and that chair is going flying. And so are you. Every time I sit up on that chair in the middle, usually I'll switch into it a couple times during the show just for a few minutes, rest my legs up a little bit. And every time I do it, it's a very slow burn getting up there because I'm like, all right, I don't want to have the embarrassment of falling, but also I don't want to interrupt the flow of this interview either. I'd be like, don't worry, it's okay. I only banged my head on the table falling off a rolling chair.
So with that, I will say just so you know, so they built this new studio for us with COVID so that we can be more socially distanced apart because the radio station was pretty close. So we're, spread out, big room, but they created these tables. The chairs are on wheels.
Yes.
And it's so slippery on this floor. So it's like, boom, and you go flying.
Yeah, it's different before when we would use these chairs as well at the splash desk, which is much lower. It's a lot easier to get into. You can kind of, get your bearings and get into them quite easily, but getting up higher, they're higher than we naturally are going to be when we're standing, so you got to kind of climb into them. And as you're climbing into a chair with wheels, of course, wheels move. These wheels do not lock. So it's a little bit of a challenge.
With that too, though, I will say, as someone who has conducted hundreds or thousands of interviews throughout my career, any chair that rocks is never a good chair for an interview because people get nervous, and so they immediately start twisting and moving, and you always have to say stop, stop, stop. In the middle of an interview, hey, you don't want to do that. So usually chairs that don't move are better for interviews. Just anyone out there at home, because so many people are starting up their own shows, YouTube shows or whatever. A little tidbit for you. Yeah, very helpful to not have, especially your guests. It's a little bit easier in some cases to keep your talent from rocking around. But it still happens. I have to sometimes when I am seated and doing a show in here, doing some on-air work in here, I do have to sometimes remind myself, hey, lock it in, because I tend to be a guy that talks with his hands and moves around a lot, and I'm a little bit fidgety at times, and so no, not you
moving around. No, never. No one ever notices.
Hey, so last night, I totally forgot about this, and I don't know how I forgot, but I know how I forgot because I had to make the reservation so long ago. Sylvan Table is open in Sylvan Lake right now, and I have to say, this is going to be so popular. I really think it's going to help change our area and attract more of these types of businesses and restaurants into the area. So we went to Sylvan Table last night for dinner. Okay. Forgot about the reservation because I had to make it so long ago before they even opened to the public. And they're already booked, by the way, for pretty much the month of June, unless you want to go 9:30 at night. Because I tried to add a couple people to our reservation. It's like, no, because you have to remember, under capacity limit. Right. So it will open up a little bit more come July 1st. But amazing. Absolutely amazing. We are so lucky that they picked this area to open the restaurant. So Sylvan Table, we've had them on the show before. It's a farm to table type restaurant, very fresh. It really reminds me of some of the restaurants we went to in the south of France, which were organic and about the season. Mm-hmm. And they have anyone that, if you ride your bike or run the trail over through Sylvan Lake, you can't help but see the restaurant because they also have the huge greenhouses as well.
Yeah, it's a really unique restaurant to this local area, not just here in Greater West Bloomfield, but really to this end of Oakland County. And it's something that's interesting. It's something that's different. It's something that we haven't really seen in the local area in terms of a restaurant. And it's definitely attracting a lot of people, and I think it's going to continue to attract a lot of people to this area. Very interesting concept. We've talked to them before, and we're going to try to get them back on the show again now that they are open. Of course, last time we talked to them, they were still preparing to open up. They were still doing a lot of training. They went on, they did, I think it was a couple weeks or almost a month of training with their staff to really get their flow down, knowing that the business was going to start with a boom.
Oh, and it definitely did. So they actually took a barn that was over 300 years old in Maine, deconstructed it, brought it down here, and reconstructed it to serve as the backdrop. It is fabulous. Everything, the entire setup, but the food is incredible. I will say it's a bit of a limited menu because it's all seasonal, so it's going to change quite often, which when you travel to European countries, that's often the case. And so with that too, expect you're not going to get a large variety of choices. This isn't going to be the place you know, you're on the lake and then you come off and you want a burger. There's not a burger on the menu. So, and also, I don't want to say it's pricey because for the quality of food, it's very well worth it. But I will say that you're going to spend some money there.
Yeah, and that's something that you got to kind of expect when you are in a situation where everything is coming from a local environment. They're not getting these items, and they're not getting these different foods necessarily in a wholesale market, which would bring the price down on both ends for the customer. And they're doing all the preparation, they're doing all the growing right there. You know who you're getting it from. So all those factors combined, it's not entirely surprising. It would be a little bit pricier, but then again, you also know where all of this is coming from, and you're interacting with the people often who are producing everything that's on your plate.
It is so amazing. It really is. Down to the flowers on the table, which I felt like they picked off of the trail with the wildflowers because I see them on my run every morning. So it's amazing. And anyone that is here, please continue to support them. We know there's a little bit of a wait to get reservations. However, the bar area is open for walk-in, but the bar area is limited. I think there's about 24 seats at the bar. Okay. But you can go into the bar area as well. And obviously capacity is going to open up come July 1st, but please support them as a new business. But, not just that new business rush for years to come as well.
Yeah, and we've had this big push of supporting local during the pandemic, and as we're coming out of the pandemic, we really need to continue to have that focus because so much of many of our local businesses have had the roughest of rough times during this pandemic, and the ones that are still around have persevered and have continued over the course of the pandemic while struggling to continue to contribute to the community. So when you have a new business even coming in, especially one that was coming in that and did all that prep work during a pandemic and is starting at a time where restaurants have been having a lot of trouble, you want to continue to support those local businesses, whether it be the Sylvan Table, which has just opened up recently here in June, or many of our other local restaurants and businesses as well.
Yeah, so for those that maybe have not heard about it, it is Sylvan Table is located at Orchard Lake and Middle Belt, right behind the McDonald's, across from the Sylvan Lake Police Department. But I think, Tyler, they've also been very respectful in that location as well. It used to be like a vacant lot that DTE would occasionally use, so they turned it in, but they also they have a path out to the trail because so many people in Sylvan, and we're in Kegel, so like in the summer months we'll just ride our bikes over there, know, so you can come in right off of the path. But also they've been respectful of trying to really respect the environment as well with their greenhouses and their construction. So I think it's a great addition to this neighborhood, and I really think it's going to bring widespread attention to Sylvan Lake in the Kegel area as well, because this restaurant is going to be very popular for years to come.
Yeah, it's already been getting a lot of recognition in the local area just because of the uniqueness of the concept itself and it being one of the first of its kind really in our general area on this side of the county in particular and really all throughout this local area in general. And I think it's going to continue to do that because of the contributions that they plan to be making to the community and really the local aspect of this restaurant through and through.
Absolutely. I just can't rave about it enough. And the good thing is when we were leaving, the manager, the beverage manager, stopped and he was just talking to all the patrons. What do you think? Would you like? Would you not like? And he really had no clue. Because we didn't interview him on the show, but I was with my husband, didn't know who he was. It was just how they treat everyone, which I think is a beautiful thing. So please support local. And if you can't get in there until you can get in there, again, we made reservations before they even opened. They're pretty booked through the month of June. But if you can't get in there, go to a local restaurant.
Yeah, we got plenty of them in the greater West Bloomfield area, plenty of them just on the outside and throughout here in eastern Oakland County. There's plenty to choose from while you're waiting for reservations at this new one.
So with that, we'll jump into the headlines because we have a great lineup for you today, Tuesday. So we want to make sure we kind of keep things on a track here. Hey, I'm going to jump around a little bit too. Tyler, sorry about that.
That's fine.
A report on the origins of COVID-19 by a U.S. government national laboratory concluded that the hypothesis claiming the virus leaked from a Chinese lab in Wuhan is plausible, deserves further investigation. So the study was prepared in May 2020 by the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. It's in California. It was drawn on by the State Department when conducted an inquiry into the pandemic's origins during the final months of the Trump administration. So it is now attracting fresh interest in Congress now that President Biden has ordered that U.S. intelligence agencies report to him within weeks on how the virus emerged. Biden said the U.S. intelligence has focused on two scenarios: whether the virus came from human contact with an infected animal, or was it a laboratory accident? Scientists analyzed the genetic makeup of viruses to try to determine how they evolved and spread in the population. So this conversation is going to continue, and the reason why it's so important is if it was an accident, it was an accident. Say it was an accident. If it came from an infected animal, let's change the policy and the procedures.
Yeah, I think earlier on in the pandemic, I don't think earlier on in the pandemic, I know for sure this was in some circles, particularly those that are leaning left politically, saw this concept as more of a conspiracy theory. But as time has gone on and more analysis has been done, and you think about it, the way that the origins of COVID-19 in China, in the Wuhan area, were being investigated, they were being investigated by the World Health Organization, who was only getting so much information as was being provided to them or they were getting access to throughout the Wuhan area by the Chinese government, who was very closed off. And that's why you're seeing now, instead of a worldwide organization like the World Health Organization leading the charge into investigating the origins, the U.S. is putting their own intelligence community on it to see if there is some plausibility to this hypothesis, if this may be the case, if it was an accident, or if it was something that was more deliberate, or something in between, like the theory we've had so far, that it's been transmitted from an animal, from bats out in Wuhan in a market there. So we got to get to the bottom of this one way or the other, and China tends to not be very cooperative when it comes to this investigation on the world level. So that means we're going to have to do some more digging in the old-fashioned way with our intelligence community.
Well, let's just be honest. Most governments are not very open and transparent.
Very true. Very true.
Hey, we want to kind of jump through the headlines a little bit quicker today so we can get to our first guest. So with that, a new COVID outbreaks at 2 schools here in Oakland County. Vaccinations available for those 12 and up. And the school year coming to an end, COVID-19 outbreaks at schools dropped again over the last week. No surprise. Of the 21 new COVID cases in Michigan schools reported for the week of May 29th through June 4th, 4 cases occurred and 2 outbreaks at 2 schools here in Oakland County. Of course, this is all according to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Rochester Adams, Clarkston Junior High, each reported 2 cases amongst students. Less than a month ago, on May 10th, the state had 176 cases at schools, while Oakland County had 34 cases, 15 outbreaks at 12 schools. An outbreak, by the way, as defined by the state, is 2 or more cases that have shared exposure at school grounds and are from different households. So we, no surprise, starting to see these numbers come down, but some schools are out already for the year, but many are not. So that's going to be important as we go into the summer months as well and the fall, because we know so many schools are going to be having summer session.
Yeah, and another factor in this that will probably play a little lesser of a role because of the age group is the vaccination availability for ages 12 to 15 with the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine.
Hey, the Detroit Tigers. They are welcoming back fans, Comerica Park. No capacity restrictions for the first time since September 2019. Thieme is hosting its first home game since the state dropped outdoor COVID-19 restrictions on June 1st. The return of full capacity means more than 41,000 fans are allowed inside Comerica Park tonight. Since opening day, the state only allowed up to 20% capacity for outdoor stadiums and arenas. About 8,000 fans were allowed in the stadium. So if you're going to the ballpark, keep in mind, you do not have to wear a mask. It's going to be optional. Pre-entry health screening is not going to be in place, which really was nothing. I went to a Tigers game. It's just a few questions on your phone. Contact entry is going to remain. When you show your ticket, you need to have one on a smartphone, which I wonder how that's going to work with elderly people that don't have phones or still have a flip phone. Keep in mind, that's the same for parking. And if you're going to be getting concessions, you cannot pay for your concessions with cash. You need to pay for them through your phone or a debit card.
Yeah,
credit card, one or the other.
Yeah, welcome change, I think, for a lot of fans who have wanted to go to games and maybe have neglected to do so or decided not to do so simply because it's not the same experience with a reduced audience. Now they're going to let full capacity in. We'll see with the way the Tigers are playing how full it actually ends up being.
Right, it may be a good thing for the Tigers that they haven't been allowed full capacity. It gives them an excuse for not filling the stands.
Absolutely.
You'll find the latest headlines. Go to civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus. With that, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have a great show for you. We're going to be talking to Charlie LeDuff, the journalist and the host of the No BS News Hour, about his investigation into the nursing home deaths. We're so lucky to have a journalist like him still here in the Metro Detroit area who wouldn't let this issue go. And we need him. Also in the 10 o'clock hour, we'll be joined by the CEO of Automation Alley. Tom Kelly will be with us. And that's all coming up next here on the Megacast.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope, by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
Thank you for being with us here on the Megacast. You know, throughout the pandemic, starting from day one, even before we had our first case in Michigan, we knew that this virus was hitting our nursing homes especially hard. And yet, here we are more than a year and a half into this pandemic, and I feel like we still don't have the straight answers as to the true impact it's had on our elderly people. And the one person who's been trying to get to the bottom of this, Charlie LeDuff, he's a very well-known journalist here in the Metro Detroit area and also the host of the No BS News Hour. Please download his podcast and subscribe. But with that, Charlie, I always want to say thank you for taking time to be with us.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Charlie and I used to work together at Fox 2, and your desk was not directly across from mine. Look at that, Heel Perkins, but kind of catty-corner. And I will tell people, one of the first things you said to me, we were talking about Pontiac. And as everyone knows, I live in Kegel Harbor. I volunteered for years in Pontiac. It's very close to my heart. And at that time, Pontiac was just starting to go through the emergency manager situation. And we were talking, and you looked at me and you go, "You're not the dumb blonde I thought you were." Because I was per diem back then, by the way. So I was like, no, you know, because Pontiac really was, in my opinion, kind of, the experiment that everyone should have been watching and paying attention to before we got to the bankruptcy in the city of Detroit. But no one was really watching or listening.
No, I apologize. I didn't mean that you were not really a dumb blonde. I just realized that you dyed your hair and that you're not a blonde.
I know. I do have a twin sister. She has brown hair, brown eyes. But with that, though, I will say, though, but it's right. You know, sometimes these things come up. But, one thing that I think everyone respects about you, some people love you, some people hate you, but no one can dispute your love and your passion for the city of Detroit, because you could be working anywhere right now, but yet you've chosen to stay home. And hopefully people can see between their opinions and the politics and appreciate the work that you've done. Because I will say, I don't think we would be anywhere near this conversation on the deaths in our nursing homes had you not only took up the fight, but continued the fight as well.
Yeah, well, it's important. You know, we shut down all human endeavor to protect not only the elderly, but the infirm, the weaker, you know, the handicapped. It's more than just the elderly. These are institutionalized citizens that, you know, I'm taught to respect the older people. And we didn't do a very good job. We didn't focus. We shut down the economy. We shut down the schools. It had a very deep effect. And what did we get? And it's not a sort of after the fact. This is, as you said, it's been going on for 15 months. And I just have to say, where was everybody? There's a vomit of statistics every day, you know, transmission rate, mutation rate, we're looking at death certificates. We're doing the whole nine, but we never really focused where we needed to. And now it's coming out. It's quite obvious that we never did keep a proper count of nursing homes. And when I say nursing homes, I guess we'll get into it, but we did force the Director of Health and Human Services to come out and give testimony to the House Oversight Committee. And they did a nice game of dancing around and confusing you at home. Because when we say nursing homes, we the people just mean sort of like old folks homes, right? But nursing home is very specific. It means 24-hour nursing care. They draw on Medicaid and Medicare. Then you have homes for the aged, which are like nursing homes, but they don't draw on Medicare. It's more like Medicaid, and they don't have 24-hour nursing. And then there are the adult foster homes. Those are those group settings in your neighborhood where 5 elderly people will live there. We're supposed to have been counting all of those. And in that whole entire group, it's come to light that about 25% of them weren't even required to report at all, much less the rest of the numbers you're getting, which we can get into. So the fact is, I believe the House Oversight Committee is going to ask the Auditor General of the state to start looking through each and every of the 19,000 deaths to find out where people lived before they died, not just where they died. That's what Cuomo was doing in New York. You know, whether you lived in a nursing home and died there or died in a hospital, you're still supposed to be counted as a nursing home death. And all that group put together for our purposes here today will be called nursing home. But what they really are long-term care facilities.
And I'm glad that you are trying to inform people of the differences as well, because we know that impacts the numbers that they're trying to share as well. I will say my mom, we were lucky, I don't want to say lucky enough, but she was in Ohio when she fell and then she had a stroke, and then, but we were able to visit her. Whereas in Michigan, we wouldn't be able to, but then she got transferred to a long-term care facility, a rehab center, and that's where she passed away. But it was hard because once you were in there, you couldn't visit them, but you could visit them in the hospital. And so when you die alone, it leaves this impression on your hearts as the children of some of the people and the victims. And you're here in the state of Michigan. I feel like in Ohio, they've at least addressed the issue. But in Michigan, there are so many families that are left in limbo because their loved ones died alone.
Yeah, and they deserve answers, you know?
Absolutely. And with this, Charlie, if I can even, we've been reporters long enough to know that anytime you needed an investigative story, all you had to do, nursing homes. We would be bombarded with people with complaints from some of these facilities. And this is at the time they're supposed to be state regulated. But yet the government goes in and they say, we're going to allow you to self-report. This is an industry that hasn't had a good record of self-reporting anything.
Let's do that. I mean, first of all, the numbers you're getting are self-reported numbers. That's it. Remember, Michigan was one of the very last states. Y'all remember, like a whole year ago, we were one of the last states to even report deaths. It was never required to this day by the governor's pen. She never required it, nor did she require, by her own pen, testing for the residents. That came later with the Director of Health and Human Services. So naturally, there is some incentive for these facilities not to report accurately. And who's going to go back from the beginning of the pandemic to start to measure where the real death was? Well, guess what? Last summer, the state did. They hired a firm. Once the federal government said, y'all have to start counting these, we hired a firm. They went back. Out of 8,000 deaths, they randomly took 1,500 death certificates, right? I'll show you. And they found out that 650 of these things were from nursing homes. I don't know if it's long-term care facilities or just nursing homes. That's 44% random search of the deaths. Not only did the state not add those into their numbers because they're afraid of a double count, they stopped counting. They stopped counting. So now we're claiming somewhere in the area of 29% of our deaths are in these rotten, fetid cattle pens. Just like you said, the state stopped inspecting them during the COVID spike because the inspectors were too afraid to go in. So they were just making phone calls. So we really have no idea who died. I was just going to show you a death certificate. There'll be a place on the death certificate that tells where you died, like the hospital. Right. Then it'll give you a place of residence. They never bothered checking the place of residence. Now, there's a guy, an 86-year-old veteran. His name's Clarence. This whole thing's kind of in his memory. That's what I'm motivated through. It took 8 seconds to put in his address, and you found out it was a Detroit nursing home. But it's doubtful that he's counted as a nursing home death. So we need to know what's going on in those places, what level of care. So whatever just happened, we can fix in the future. And let's be honest, let's be really honest. We're now in an election cycle, and we need this answered so we can make a legitimate conclusion about the level of leadership that we got through this pandemic. Because as you guys were talking about earlier, remember the Wuhan lab thing was a conspiracy theory and a hoax. Yeah. The stolen election. Like, can we just get honest and nonpartisan about what our leadership's doing, what these political parties are doing, and how everything's being warped, and yet all of us aren't really getting much. That's why we need this thing to come to a conclusion and figure out what was really going on in those long-term care facilities. And I'm not going to stop till we get it.
And you know what's so sad is this has become so politicized.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, for our politicians, shame on you. Both sides. Like, this is not a political issue. This is a life or death issue. We're all real people. And the people who died, some of them are Republicans, some are Democrats, and some are independents. At the end of the day, they're all Americans. And you need to own your mistakes. But you had to sue, and you did it with the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. What was that process like? That's ridiculous, too, by the way.
For data.
But even then, the data that you're getting, is it even accurate?
No, and again, like, yeah, shame on our politicians, but shame on our bureaucracy, and shame on our political parties, because it's all, you know, and shame on the warped contractors, and shame on the executives and the owners of these facilities. You all go around taking the public's money, taking your check every week, and you're tight-lipped. I've had directors of nursing in these nursing homes blow the whistle to me. They've been on my podcast, but I haven't had anybody in the bureaucracy say, hey, dude, we were piping the numbers. They haven't done it. Why? Because you get along to take your check. Yep. We cut your check. Yep. We just want this to work. Why would I have to get a think tank? You know, I got to find some guys in suits so people take this seriously. Like, it's not LeDuff out there going crazy. I have a nonpartisan, very august, very serious think tank, the Mackinac Policy Center. And we're trying to get data that's incomplete, that they're trying to obfuscate, that they're trying to misdirect. And you know, it's real simple. This is what we do. There are 19,000 deaths. There's a name and there's an address. Run them in. Give me the 19,000 death certificates. Give me a college class.
Hey, I have a niece that just graduated from the University of Michigan in public policy. I'll donate her time. Sorry, Emma.
But it wouldn't be that hard. Would it be 100% accurate? No. Would it be better than what we have now? Yes. Yeah. So I'm just going to say it. When Director Elizabeth Hertel of Health and Human Services does the misdirect and says the nursing home data is accurate, like lemmings, the media gobbles it up because they don't know what she's talking about, and they let themselves be used. Of course, the self-reported numbers are accurate because the state is simply reporting what the nursing homes had just recently told them. That doesn't mean it's scientific. It doesn't mean statistically it's correct. So we got to get off our butts and especially in the press, and do better by the public. That's why they hate us.
I'm going with you on that one. I will say, as someone who left mainstream media and has no desire to ever go back, you're talking truth. And I spent years defending the media to law enforcement when I worked for ATF. And you sit back now and you view things with a different viewpoint, and you're like, they didn't deserve that defense. Get off your butts and do your job. Your job is not to be friends with your elected leaders or with anyone. And you can be a friend, but you still have to report the news. And the numbers are the numbers, the facts are the facts, and do a little bit of reporting. So Charlie, with this as well, do you feel like kind of a lone wolf out there on your own?
I don't think of it that way. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Like, once the House Oversight Committee had testimony from my lawyer, Steve DeLee from the Mackinac Center, and then Director Hertel, and I saw these headlines coming out, and within the stories, my name's buried. I'm like, okay, you know, she disputes what reporter Charlie LeDuff says, and I'm like, well, where were you last week when I came out with the findings? Only Bridge Magazine even double checked it, and they found out our findings were correct. But nobody had the guts or the balls to look for themselves. They're waiting for the state apparatus to dump on us and then they're going to dump on it as well. But you know what, guys? We're right. And you're also mad because you weren't on the governor and her airplane, and you took the silly excuses about, having to see the dad, and it was 2 days or less, and it was really 4 days, and you paid, but you didn't pay, but your slush fund paid, but they didn't pay. Your daughters are down there. Every step of this way, what I was doing for the public is, I didn't believe Snyder and Flint. I don't believe Whitmer in the nursing homes. I don't believe Doug in downtown in these demolitions. I didn't believe Trump and this election fix. I'm just glad the founding fathers wrote it in that I can't be sent to prison for telling the truth, because that was pretty savvy a couple hundred years ago, because that's what they do to you.
Yeah.
We're just being lied to. And enough. I mean, the economy is screwed up. The kids' minds are screwed up. Did we do the best we could do during this pandemic to protect all of us and our future? Because we made decisions that are going to have ramifications decades from now. And I just think we got lied to.
I had a medical professional in the early stages of this say we were doing it wrong. He was like, the people that are at risk need to be the ones staying at home. The rest of us need to be out. And then what we found here in the state of Michigan is, because of our lockdowns, they put it in a nice way, though. Due to our lockdowns, and we were so restrictive, we had the third surge where so many other places didn't. So that's why Florida...
That was a lie. That was, nobody looked at it. Remember, the governor said we were so effective that we don't have antibodies, right?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out the CDC does antibody checks. What they do is they go to commercial laboratories, and they take random samples of blood, not just COVID patients, but let's say you got to have your appendix out, or a random physical. Turns out that we had the same level of antibodies per capita as Florida. That wasn't locked down. It turns out that California, that was locked down, had a higher level of antibodies. New York we were somewhere in the middle. So it was complete and utter nonsense that got re-reported without being vetted to explain the third surge. Maybe this is why we had a third surge. Our public health stinks. Our nursing homes stink. Our hospital system stinks. Our water systems stink. Maybe this place is falling apart, and we all got to get together with the press's help to figure out how, why, and where, and fix it. That's what I suspect was going on.
I think one of the biggest things to come out of this COVID, we're talking about so much money right now due to, I hate to think about this, and I always like to ask the Democrats who are so on board with spending this money. I was like, oh, you care about our kids, right? Yeah. What about the kids 20 generations from now that are going to be paying for this, and you're wasting money? Let's actually use the money where it needs to be. And one of the things that needs to be fixed is the healthcare system and how we report things, and these computer systems need to be able to speak to one another. Following 9/11, we switched how our first responders communicated to one another. Let's do it with this. It's not rocket science, people.
It's funny you said that, because during the testimony, I guess the media was off at the toilet when she was saying this. Director Hertel said, we can't, they have the death certificates, right? It's codified in the counties. And the Department of Health and Human Services also has another computer system, where the nursing homes report, and they can't cross-reference. She said the computers don't talk to each other.
It's insane.
They don't talk to each other. How can this be? You were going data. We had billions dumped in here from the feds. We're having billions more, and I'm not hearing computers.
I'm not hearing anyone talk about how we fix this system. And let's take the money and actually put it to use in something like this. But, Charlie, I will tell you, working for the federal government, I used to call it the fuzzy Fed world. In the regular business world, especially in news, deadlines matter. You don't have time to sit around and play with this stuff. They would take forever. I was like, what would have taken me 5 minutes would have to take me like 5 hours, because I had to figure out a way to get around the fuzzy Fed world. And it's the same word. Let's stop Let's just stop. If we ran it like a business, we wouldn't have this problem. And when you're talking
I don't
about
know
data,
about that.
well, we wouldn't have it to the extreme because a lot of people would be fired. A lot of people would be fired. When you work for an agency
Trump was a businessman. Trump
Yeah.
was a businessman, and the economy was growing only through deficit spending. And Snyder was a businessman, and you see about Flynn. All I'm asking is competency, get up, earn your check, and you don't work for the political boss. You're supposed to work for us.
well,
But every year, the cycle is who gets these jobs for their nieces.
Yep.
That's what it turns out to be.
and I will tell you too, Charlie, as someone who's you see when you're on the inside, it's all politics. And when it changes leadership, it changes in the political arena and how you do your job every day. And it's also typically in government, sadly, you don't step out and you don't talk out. And if something happens, everyone will support you behind the scenes, but no one will step up and support you because they're all worried about their own butt. So I see before sitting on the outside, the Flint water crisis, you're like, how does this happen? Once you work for a government agency, you're like, yeah, I'm surprised that hasn't happened sooner. Because no one speaks up, and when you do speak up, you are then going to be an outcast, and they will make your life miserable.
And I mean, like what's going on in Detroit, we all know it's not a secret. The federal grand juries, the demolitions, the poison dirt in the ground. Who's even talking about that? Nobody. It's an election year. Look at Greektown. That's mayhem every weekend. Shootings, fights. We starved the police. Nobody's talking about it, right? We can go on and on and on, but we have to do better for our kids. Like you said, 20 generations. Forget 20. How about the next one?
Yeah. And with that, you're right when we say we could talk forever, especially about the demolitions. It's my pet peeve. I did a story like along with you, and we were talking about the dirty dirt long before. And then, the cemetery right now, I did that story so long ago. No one would take me seriously.
Well, now that the reports are out, the dirt is poisoned. The reports are out.
Yeah.
The Inspector General, Army Corps of Engineers. So when the shoe drops, are we taking all these Biden bucks that he sent to Detroit and paying for that? If you look at, I'll say this real quick. You look at the budget proposal by the Biden administration, and their anticipated rate of growth over the decade is 2%. That's real growth, not nominal growth. That's taking inflation out. 2%. That's what was happening in Trump and Obama. We've been staggered along at 2%. But you just injected $6 to $10 trillion into the economy, and you're going to get 2% growth. That says to me, what's inflation going to do? What is the projections for inflation? So everybody that saved money, you're middle class, you have a nest egg, does inflation start eating away at your savings? Big pieces of public policy that aren't being discussed.
It all comes down to, remember, it's not free money. If I hear another politician say it's free money, no, it's our money. It's our tax dollars. And with that, Charlie, we could have an entire show with you, but in the meantime, tell us, number one, why this matters, and number two, where can people find your work?
Why what matters?
The numbers on the nursing home.
Okay, the numbers on the nursing homes matter because numbers represent people. So your loved one died. You have a right to know where they counted. Number two, these numbers give you a gauge of what's going on with end-of-life care in America. These numbers should qualify the direction in which we go into the future. And three, finally, these numbers give you a gauge as to the quality of leadership that we may have had or may not have had during the pandemic. You can find me, it's the computer world. You just put in Charlie LeDuff, you'll see a bunch of garbage. And you'll also find the No BS News Hour. It's about 100,000 strong now. It's basically a radio show on the internet. You can see it on Facebook. You can download it on iTunes. We also broadcast on Facebook. And we're going to 2 days a week now. We're starting to hire videographers. So we'll be back on YouTube. We're growing. It's going well.
That's great. And I know that you also still write for Deadline Detroit.
I didn't mention that. Yeah, I write for DeadlineDetroit.com.
That's okay. I got your back. I will say, Charlie, I've been a big supporter and always appreciated your work because when people talk about you, some people want to say things. I was screaming at Fox 2 the other night. They had someone on there. And I was like, what are you talking about? Don't even get me started. I think she might have even been like from MLive. I'm like, that's the worst publication.
That was just some Democratic hit squad. I don't care. I care what my mother thinks about me and my friends and, my wife and my daughter. The rest of it's a show.
Yeah. But we will say, too, journalists don't dog other journalists. And when we're talking about, I know, hey, journalists, if you're out there, be responsible. But we do know a lot of great reporters. It's not necessarily them. They're either not given the time or the resources, but it's also the people that are higher up that are making those decisions, not allowing them to do these stories. So
yeah, no guts.
Exactly.
But yeah, there's tons of great reporters, and it's not that they're not doing good work. They are doing good work. It's people are just starting to drift away. Yep. People are just looking for their own. They feel unfulfilled and unsatisfied. But there are, there's the Christine McDonald's and the Paul Egans and the Rob Snells and the Chastity Pratts. They're out there. There's a lot of them.
I always like
a lot of people.
Robert Snell. I'm like, what's your Pacer account bill every quarter? But I will say, as someone who was a PIO for federal law enforcement, they made my job easy, but it was always fascinating to see the Chicago market never gave me a pass like the Detroit market. So always interesting. But
that's
Charlie,
an issue.
It is. We appreciate your time, but more importantly, we appreciate your work. And as you said, the numbers matter too because policy changes because of these numbers, and we need the truth to make a difference. And if you want to start really addressing end of care life, like they're trying to throw money at childcare right now, we need to make sure this actually gets to the people that need it and not to the fat cats that own these companies that haven't been responsible throughout the entire time anyway, that are just going to get more of our tax dollars. So we appreciate your work. Keep it up. And everyone, please follow Charlie, subscribe to him, and support his work. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, Automation Alley will be with us here on the Megacast.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line, for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
We want to say thank you for taking time to be with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside Mr. Tyler Keefe. Always an interesting conversation with Charlie LeDuff.
Yeah, always an interesting conversation. He's got a lot to say, a lot of the information out there that he is obtaining on a number of different issues. He's never just working on one specific thing. He's always digging into a bunch of different issues across the board and trying to put some truth to power, where power is simply not providing the whole truth in some cases, or is avoiding giving any of it.
And I will say, I remember when he first joined the Fox 2 team, I was a per diem there. I was like, what? You know, the guy's a little crazy. He's a print guy, and he's coming in. But the one thing I will say about Charlie, he is very passionate, and he cares. So whether you like his style or not, go beyond the noise. He's not a political person, but just look at the facts he's giving. Because I will say one thing about Charlie LeDuff, he does his research. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people that have worked with him, and he is very adamant about his research. Let's just kind of put it that way. So look between the numbers, and at the end of the day, this really is about our loved ones that have passed away from the virus. And if anything, let's get our computer systems working and talking to one another. Yes. And I will say maybe they need to hire our next guest, because when it comes to technology, they are the experts, maybe not in government computer systems. But with that, Tom Kelly with us, the CEO of Automation Alley. The entire conversation, I was like, Tom could fix that.
You are overselling me in a huge way. I wouldn't go there, but certainly can be good at some things, right?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I was listening to the end of that conversation with Charlie, and he's a hard act to follow. He's very interesting guy.
Yeah, he is very interesting as well. But on top of that, he is passionate, but you're passionate as well. And one of the great things about America, right? There you go, is that we bring people together. Is we have to have different passions in this world in order for our society to function. And for you, it's Automation Alley. For people not familiar, give us the background.
So Automation Alley's been around 20 years, going on our 21st year now in Oakland County. We have grown every year, and we've gotten more involved in the community around all things automation. And because of that long arc, our tagline is Michigan's Industry 4.0 Knowledge Center. And Industry 4.0 is the fourth industrial revolution. And it's how we navigate in manufacturing to do things smarter, better, faster, using new technologies like collaborative robotics, like virtual reality and augmented reality on your phone. All of these technologies that are coming to bear. And manufacturing, we don't see it because people don't pay attention, but manufacturing is 20% of our GDP, and we run the risk of losing our place in the world in manufacturing because we're not paying attention to how fast technology is moving.
But are we already behind in America from other countries? Because I feel like they have put more attention on this, whereas we've geared away from manufacturing. They've embraced it.
It's not so much that they've paid attention and we haven't. It's that we built assets around the third industrial revolution. So we have all of these assets in manufacturing that are, in our minds, worth a lot of money and have a culture built around it. And somebody like Mexico for the last 20 years says, well, we had no manufacturing, so everything we do is cutting edge and current because it's today's dollars. And that happened in China. Now you're seeing it, China's getting like us, they're getting expensive. And so you're seeing manufacturing move to Vietnam and Singapore and some of these other places in Asia. But there's two things happening, Ronnie, that are really in our favor. Manufacturing is going from being a big man's game to being a fragmented small man's game like it used to be. The journeyman, the skilled trades, those kinds of things. Because of 3D printing, because of virtual reality, because of all these technologies that say, if I'm little, I can still make something useful, I can print it myself. This is where Michigan can shine. So why we're focused on this is not to sort of hold on to what we have. It's to reinvent ourselves and dominate for the next cycle of manufacturing that is, by the way, going to be reshored back to America just as equally as it'll reshore other places coming out of China. So there's a lot to gain by this. And we're in a good position to really win, finally. After 20 years of sort of losing on the global stage, we can finally win.
And how much of that is centered around technologies such as 3D printing?
It's everything. 3D printing is going to displace what we call subtractive manufacturing where you start with a big hunk of metal and you grind it down to make it smaller, right? And you waste all that part. Whereas 3D printing is you start with fiber or some kind of material and you build it up and you make that part. Everything is going to go additive. Ronnie, I got to tell you one example. There's a guy, we're part of the World Economic Forum. There's a guy I know, his name is Thieme Ellis. He's the CEO and founder of a company called Relativity Space. He's using 3D printing to build an entire rocket in one go.
What?
Yes, and he's gonna. It costs about $60 to $100 million to build a rocket. He thinks he can build it for $10 million. And by the way, his first real test of launching it into space is going to be this summer. If you think about that, that puts the entire aerospace industry at risk because everybody has to be in the 3D printing business now.
Right.
And this is just one guy working on one technology. Technology is everything in manufacturing. The problem we have in Oakland County and elsewhere, Ronnie, is we have 2,200 manufacturers in Oakland County. Most of them are small. Almost all of them are small. And none of them are paying attention to how fast technology is moving. They say, you know what? I inherited the same assets that my father had. Yep. He willed them to me. And now I'm going to build this, or, whatever the case may be, you have to focus on revamping how you go to market and what you do. And that's what we do. That's what Automation Alley does. We help take the scariness out of this technological transition and say, it shouldn't be scary. It's actually an opportunity. Here's the way I can make money. And here's the way I can get my children into the business, my sons and daughters, and have them inherit something that they think was really cool. Because additive is cool. Young kids love additive. They don't like the dirty, dangerous, dull, but they love robotics and they love additive. So let's do it. Let's give them robotics and additive.
So with that, Tom, the technology changes so fast. How do you keep up with it, especially if you're an old school person?
Well, we talk a lot about option-like bets. So technology changes fast for us as consumers too. And we've just built into our lives that every 3 years I'm going to get a new phone. Right. Or every 4 years, right?
Darn
Nobody
you,
says,
Apple.
Oh my God, I have to pay $1,000 every 4 years for a GD phone, Nobody says that. They say, I love it. The new technology allows me to do even more with my life than I was doing before. So we've come to expect on the consumer side that life is just going to be continuously obsoleted, and I just keep up with it. I've made that choice. For 40 years, I didn't have a Ring doorbell. Now I do. I can see who's at the door before I go get it. So life happens. The same is happening in manufacturing, but we've somehow assumed that, if I do something, then I have to hold on to that asset for 20 years. All it is it's a financial equation that you have to reset your mind that says, I'm going to be reinventing what I do here continuously, the same as I reinvent my personal life continuously as a consumer.
So with that, Tom, we're talking with Tom Kelly. He's the CEO for Automation Alley. And I know the last time we talked, you were able to get some of these 3D printers into various manufacturing companies throughout Oakland County as a way through the COVID dollars and the pandemic to help them thrive and hopefully survive going forward. How is that going?
It's going awesome. Now, you have a bell curve, right? We've distributed 300 printers, Ronnie, 300. So that's 300 manufacturers. Many of them couldn't spell 3D, and it's no offense to them. I kid with them, right? But now they've got these printers, and we've educated all of them on how to use it. And we're starting to see the fruits of our labor, where it was designed where it's an entire network where if we ever have an emergency, we can print PPE as needed. That was the whole point. And so they're now all connected. We've achieved our mission. I think when I was on, we were talking about the mission. We've now got all these printers. But the beautiful thing that's happened is we said, we don't want you to have these printers just to make PPE. We want you to learn and be excited about 3D printing. And so one example, there's one guy in Oakland County, he used to buy a valve overseas, cost him $100 for a stainless steel valve. He now 3D prints it himself in carbon fiber. The performance is better, and it costs him $1 to print that valve. And he puts it on all the machines that go out the door. He's putting that valve on those machines. He increased his profit margin $100 with one part, just like that. And now he's saying, I'm tearing my machine apart, looking for other ways that I can print these components and get them in. And we're seeing this time and time and time and time again. It's just a wonderful story. It's going to change Oakland County forever, what we're doing with these 3D printers.
You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. And Tom, if I can ask you, how do you go to the small mom and pop manufacturing companies and try to have this conversation? Hey, we want you to go into 3D printing. What's that been like?
These 300 are the small mom and pops. And you know what? They never would have done it. These are $20,000 machines. And every single one of them would say, 3D printing is interesting, but I'm not putting $20,000 up to make this happen. And
especially in a pandemic, too.
Of course. They're just trying to survive. So the beauty of the CARES dollars was we had a chance to make an investment in our community that would pay dividends forever for someone that never would have taken the risk on their own. We said, here, take a printer. Right? And well, it's a free government thing, free money is you were talking with your last guest. Well, we know it's not free. We're making an investment. But for them, they said, okay, sure, what have I got to lose? If you want to give me a printer, I'll take it. And these are the mom and pops that we've transformed their lives, their manufacturing lives, because all of them, the anecdotal stories, one after the other, I had no idea. Did you know I can do this now? Tom, did you know I can print that now? And I'm like, I did know that. I was waiting for you to find out you could do that. So these are truly the mom and pop shops, Ronnie. It's what gets me up in the morning. It is wonderful to see.
You know what's so great too is they are really the testimony to other shops and other business owners to embrace the new technology.
That's right. And we want them to teach others. The whole point is we are a nonprofit. We're trying to seed the community with this technology. And then we're stitching the community together to say, you teach each other. That's what it should be. To create a compelling community around manufacturing is changing. And how it changes, it's becoming very collaborative. In this town, one of the hardest things we wrestle with is automotive is very secretive and very non-collaborative. And nobody wants to share anything with anybody for fear that they're going to get the scoop on the next big production part. Additive manufacturing iterates so fast that it's the exact opposite. I want everybody to help me. It's almost like software development, where if you go to the Silicon Valley, everybody says, what are you doing? Oh, I make this. Hey, how can I help? What can I do with you? I'll write some code with you. It's a very collaborative environment because software is about, you can never fill the whole universe, right? It's always the next thing. So therefore, there's room for you, Ronnie, and there's room for me, and there's room for everybody else. Manufacturing was always a zero-sum game. If you have the order, I don't. Therefore, I have to be secretive. Not in additive, because additive explodes the world of abundance in manufacturing. The ability to innovate becomes so big that we need to change our cultural mindset and say, you know what? I want to help you do your part because you'll help me do my part. And that's what we're trying to change. It's a tough slog, let me tell you, but we're trying.
Well, one thing with the pandemic, it has opened up some of these doors that would have been closed prior to COVID-19 because we've all had to think and work differently. But I also kind of wonder when we're looking at this technology, just in layman's terms, what's it been like to try to have this conversation with unions as well?
We've had conversations with the UAW. In fact, we were poised to do a project with the UAW around robotics, but COVID hit, pandemic hit, everything came to a standstill. We see unions as a part of the solution because what I truly believe this, unions need to get back in the business of really teaching because the world is changing so fast. You can't have a union that says, hey, we're focused on contractually negotiating how we do the job today, because that job is going to change tomorrow immediately. The world is changing so fast. The unions used to be the place you went to learn a trade. They used to be the ones that came out with the plumber certificates and the electrician certificates and the assembly worker stuff. Unions need to get back in the business of training, and training will be continuous. We might reach a world where you go to your job for 4 days and you go to the union hall for a day and you learn something new. That aggressive, because we have to get there. So I see unions as part of the solution, but sometimes I think unions don't see that they're part of the solution, and they have to be able to teach their people, because that's going to be the future.
Right. It's that leadership component that we really need to start to develop, because the world is wide open and technology is here to make it better. We're speaking with Tom Kelly. He's the CEO for Automation Alley. And Tom, just a few more minutes, because I know we've taken up a lot of your time. But you have some exciting projects coming up. Do you want to share those with us?
Well, we have two things coming up that I want to make sure people are aware of. One is we have this, what we call this technology and industry report. Every year, we work with our academic institutions like Lawrence Tech, like Oakland University, like Oakland Community College, Baker College. We have about 12 academic institutions we work with. And they really help us look over the hill and around the bend of where is the world going related to manufacturing technology. Right? So augmented reality, virtual reality, 3D printing, all the things you hear about collaborative robotics. And we publish a feature-rich report. It's like 110 pages, and it's getting revealed on June 22nd. And you'll be able to tune in. I believe it's free. It's a Zoom session. So come to automationalley.com and get registered to get that information. I think you'll be able to download that report. And then the second thing, Ronnie, is Integrate, our Industry 4.0 conference. We get about 1,200 people into the TCF Center every year. We missed last year because of COVID. It's back. It's October 19th. It is, if you are a nerd like me, it's the best thing going. If you want to see some cool robots, if you want to put on some VR goggles, if you want to see what's happening in manufacturing, how cool it is. The last time we did it, we bussed kids in from Detroit schools. We had like 300 kids crawling all over that exhibition, and it was wonderful. And those kids had such a good time. A lot of times they knew more than the manufacturers did about the technology.
Right. The kids are smart today.
Yeah. So I tell everybody, come on down October 19th, back in person, fully open. It's going to be awesome.
That is going to be so fun. And I will say, I love it. The fourth industrial revolution, how you refer to it, because we have to continue to grow and to evolve. But Tom, before we say goodbye, I will say I'm not a manufacturing person. I have no technical ability or concept, but I find your podcast very entertaining.
Thank you. Thank you. We have to get back to it. We haven't made one in a while. So that's it. We're coming back with podcasts. Everything is reopening. We're delighted. And I'm so glad that you're a fan, because everybody should love manufacturing. It's what made America, and it's what will make America again. We just kind of took a 50-year break.
Right. But on top, I feel like your podcast, some of the conversations are just for the people, anyone that's not in manufacturing and you don't get the world, you will still get something out of these podcasts. Just enlighten yourself and learn something new. I think you guys do a great job with it. So again, we're so lucky to have you guys here in Oakland County.
Thank you. And we're happy to be here. We love being in Oakland County. I work so well with Dave and his team over there, and Sean Carlson. They're great to work with. Really, really good strategic thinkers. There's good leadership in Oakland County these days, and I'm thrilled.
Well, that's great to hear, because we're going to need it to continue to emerge from this pandemic, but stronger and better. And like you said, the 3D printing could just be one of those components to help us get there as a community. Again, Tom Kelly with the CEO Automation Alley. You can go to their website to find out more. Tom, again, we so appreciate your time, and also our apologies for running a little behind.
No worries at all. Always love to tell the story of manufacturing, Ronnie.
There you go. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast, and when we come back, we will be joined with Oakland University. You just mentioned them. We'll be talking to them here next year on the Megacast.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid. Can I ask you a question? Why did you get vaccinated?
I'd like to go to these school dances and spring break to have fun.
I want to be in person for college next semester.
I want to get out of this pandemic.
I wanted to protect the people around me.
Why did you get vaccinated?
Because I'm really looking forward to hanging out with my friends.
I just want to go to a show, dance around, not have to worry about anything, feel like I'm free again.
So we can not miss out on the best years of our life.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
Thank you for taking time to be with us here on the Megacast. Tyler and I are here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. You can catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. If you have cable, you'll find us at Channel 15 on Comcast, 99 on AT&T. You know, it comes across on your guide, Public Access Channel. Tune into that. 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff if you're out driving around, or if you have an old school transistor radio, you'll find us on the radio dial as well. And then we are also live streaming today's edition of the Megacast on Facebook. So we were just talking with Tom Kelly about Automation Alley and so much of that great partnership with so many of our local colleges and universities. And they are continuing to help educate and really build the future of tomorrow. And with us now, Cindy Thieme. She's the director for the EMBA Program over at the School of Business Administration at Oakland University. Cindy, great to have you with us.
Good morning, Ronnie. Good morning, Tyler. Thanks for having me.
So we should just ask, kind of a rough year. Are you guys emerging from COVID and feeling a little bit more hopeful?
Yeah, it's a great time to be at OU. We have such tremendous leadership from our president, Ora Hirsch-Peskovitz, to our dean, Michael Mazzio here, getting us ready to go. The Executive MBA program, which is a weekend program, we have been very fortunate since last fall to be able to be on campus because we've been able to meet all the social distancing rules and whatnot. So we've been able to have and continue that in person. And the university is soon to roll out to the entire university community that we should be fully open and fully on campus for almost all classes in person this fall, which we're thrilled to be able to be.
But I will say, Cindy, what a great real life experience to try to teach the next business leaders about adversity and how to manage in a moment of crisis.
Absolutely. I mean, like anybody, we felt it in March, complete shutdown. I'm actually adjunct faculty as well. I was in the middle of a class and they're like, you will now be online, and obviously a lot of us have taught hybrid, but when you realize you'll be doing it day in and day out, week in and week out, it is very different and you want to give the best instructional experience. The learning has been tremendous. Our resources here at OU to support the faculty, which in the end supports our incredible student body from undergrads up through graduate school and even our PhD level, has been tremendous. But the real world learning has been unbelievable. Our executive MBA students are, they're a different non-traditional student. We'll talk a little bit about it, but their jobs went all Zoom all the time. So they were actually so relieved to be able to have the in-person time. on those weekends to come back and do what they do best, which is connect as a team, work as a team, learn from not just the faculty standing at the front of the room, but the students around you. So it has really been a tremendous experience.
So with that, being able to take this real life, we hope once in a lifetime for all of us, pandemic, and apply it to real life scenarios. What's that been like in a classroom setting?
It's been a couple of things. Again, from a faculty perspective, so many of our faculty had to stop and reassess and said, how do we get we have incredible accredited quality faculty across the board at OU. But you cannot teach the same way you always did, Ronnie. I mean, being in this way and having 30 students, some classes more, it is hard to engage with them. There was a lot of asynchronous learning taking place as well, with students being asked to do more outside of what would be physical class time. So I think the biggest thing we learned is there is an appetite for hybrid. There are certain things that work better in the online space, and certain things that you just can't replicate. So to have in person and face to face again is tremendous. And I think our students learned that the flexibility, it's just going to keep coming, especially at the executive MBA level. These are already students in 15 plus years experience in managerial executive roles. They dealt with it in their work world. They also dealt with it in their school world. So, you take it, you learn from it, you apply what you can to get the best solution. And I think we come out of it with some really tremendous learning, having the option for hybrid, knowing which models work better with asynchronous learning. Our tech team literally worked tirelessly to support all the faculty again, so we could do the best for our students. The graduating classes have we're so appreciative with such a difficult transition, but to be able to say that we got them through. So we're really proud of what we've done here, and we're going to take the learning and continue it. And to something that Tom said, things are moving so fast. People want to be taught in a different way. They want to learn in the way that works for them. So not only do we have different delivery methods, a traditional MBA where you go to night classes and sit in a class, or online MBA, which is, online 100%, or you do the cohort experience with the executive MBAs on the weekend, but we're starting to see more certificates. Tom mentioned that as well. People want to get in, they want to get a leadership certificate or a data analytics certificate, something that they can chunk off quickly, but see the reward to go and do. And I think this pandemic has given people a lot of chance to pause and say, what do I need to do for my next step?
So with that, Cindy, do you think Oakland University, and when we're talking about MBA, that you guys maybe were a little bit ahead of the curve because you are dealing with non-traditional students? So they're not necessarily living on campus, coming to the classroom Monday through Friday. They're already juggling work, life, and trying to get a higher education.
Certainly. So 2 things with that. First, I'll say we did launch an online MBA program the fall of 2020. It was already in the works pre-pandemic, and the timing couldn't have been better. We actually saw an increase in overall enrollment in the fall of 2020 across our graduate business programs. And we are so thrilled that we had worked on that. We had seen it coming, again, to the point of innovation constantly happening. We were looking at what was next, and online was next. Speaking specifically to the executive MBA students, absolutely. They already are juggling more than you imagine, right? Is your plate full? Think of it twice as full. These are CEOs. We have COOs in our program, CMOs, executive managers running divisions of massive manufacturing companies, et cetera. And they either want to go on to run their next company or, run a bigger division or take on. So how do you fit that in when you have a huge work role, a huge community role? Almost all are married with family and commitments. So the weekend executive MBA, it is a concierge program. And I think that really, we never needed that more than we needed that in a pandemic. And what that means is once you sign up, get here and do the learning. We make sure you eat when you're here. We get you all your meals. We register for you all your classes. We get you all your books, all your resources. Everything is given to these students who are so insanely busy. So when they come Friday afternoon and Saturday during the day, they can focus on the learning and what they learn that weekend. We know they can go and apply it into their work world on Monday. So that whole idea that they didn't have to add anything else in to get through, they just had to get here. And we certainly had some students that wanted synchronous learning. Obviously, we had adjusted to that at the beginning of the pandemic. We were able to continue that. So yes, it's these non-traditional students, we're living it in their work life, we're working it in their, their personal life as a student. So they've really been through a lot.
So with that, Cindy, if I can ask you, you mentioned that enrollment's been pretty successful. Do you anticipate this is going to continue post-pandemic as people really feel like they need to strengthen their, their credentials in the work world, but also looking at a global workplace on top of that?
Absolutely. It did give people, I think in general, we can all admit, a moment to pause. And for a lot of people at a certain level, there was work displacement, people who never thought that they would just be displaced ever. These wonderfully professional people with 10, 20 years of experience. So, some have chosen to take it on their own. Some have become displaced, but everybody took it feels like especially the prospective students I've been talking to and the admits we have for this fall, they really took the opportunity to say, this is just 21 months. And I'm speaking of the executive MBA program. If I can admit myself now and commit in fall, I will have an accredited Master's of Business Administration to put against my current role or to help me to do that next thing. It's not that far away, 21 months, and again, the concierge program, we have it all laid out. We know when every class is, we know when every weekend is, we know what every date is. We can share all that with you up front for these busy people, and they look at it. But yes, everybody is coming in with a different reason, as they should, but everybody's coming in with a purpose in mind. It's time to do this. I'm going to do it now. There's no time like the present. And we have continued to see good enrollment. We don't have numbers yet for 2021, but as we look at some of the stats, we see the applications and admits ticking up compared to the last 2 years. So that's really positive.
It's a great way to make yourself stand out in the world of business as well. Cindy, Thieme with us here on the Megacast. She's with the Oakland University School of Business Administration. Cindy, just another minute or two with you. Anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to add, or any advice you want to give to a potential student out there thinking about doing this?
Absolutely. It is a lot of thinking. I mean, this is not just hit a button and go. I mean,
it's a commitment.
Really do have to give it thought. But I think the biggest thing I'd want to share, couple of things. Number one is, what's the delivery method that's best for you? Do you want to come and take a class one night a week and spread that out over a couple of years? Is that the pace that you need? Does that get you where you want to go? Are you fine to be in an online environment, right? Your focus, you're here in front of your computer, that works for you over, whether it takes you 18 months or 4 years. Or if you're at a level of already, a certain managerial experience, does the executive MBA work for you, which is a really, tough immersion. You're in it, but it's 21 months and you're out. So delivery method does matter. Again, at the end of the day, you have that Master's of Business Administration. So different people will find, people can't get hung up on, they have to determine what program is best for them, based on what their work world is. Obviously, we have so many students graduating right now that are going right into continuing their education, and they're perfect for the traditional MBA. That's going to help them get into the managerial level. There's people who want supplemental learning. They're going to take their time, do it online. They don't have a path yet, but they know once they get that, then they'll have some flexibility to make a move. So, the big thing I would say is it does take time and consideration. We are always talking to prospective students. You can go to oakland.edu/EMBA. If you're ready to go, there's an apply now button, but there's also request more information. And we also do virtual info sessions. We're hoping to get back to some in person later this year, but we're doing one next Saturday. Myself and current students, prospective students, and some faculty members all share their experience about the Executive MBA program, so you can really immerse yourself and say, can I see myself in this? It is a big commitment, but ask for more information. Call us at 248-370-2059 and let's have a conversation. We can meet, this way or talk on the phone. And everybody has to come to, what level of commitment and if they're ready to do it. Obviously, financially and with time, personally and professionally, it is a big commitment. But when you see the success that people have on the other side of it, we have over 95% of our business students, undergrad and graduate, are getting jobs before they graduate or within 3 months. Most of them, a majority of our undergrads stay in Oakland County, thanks to people like Tom, who are giving, these incredible opportunities with Automation Alley. They want the opportunity to stay here and invest here. So, we see salaries going up, we see opportunities going up, and, but somebody has to do the research and then make the commitment. And we're happy to talk you through that and help you in any way we can.
Cindy Thieme with us here on the Megacast. She's the director over at the School of Business Administration, Oakland University. Cindy, we so appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you. It's great to be with you. And what a great morning of exciting things between Charlie and Tom, and continue to listen today. And thank you so much.
You definitely never know who we are going to have.
You never know.
The Megacast. Next, we'll be speaking with the Leprechauns. Did you know anything about the Royal Oak Leprechauns?
Oh, learn something new every day.
Very much so, and they are helping support our college baseball players. We'll be talking with the general manager of the Leprechauns coming up here next, and then we'll round out the show with a Jewish comedian. That's all next here on the Megacast.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Today it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
Thank you for being with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Doe here in the home studios. I'm so used to saying home studios. You know why? Because I wish I was at home with my flowers and my candle burning and in my pajamas.
Yeah, I'm kind of used to, at the beginning of the show, also saying, and now here's Ronnie in her home studio in Keego Harbor. No. Across the table, it's not Keego Harbor. Still very much within the confines of West Bloomfield Township.
Although I will say my home studio looks very clean and neat and tidy right now.
Yes.
Because I moved everything out and moved it upstairs. Like the mic, my husband and I were sharing it for the longest time. We'd run it upstairs and then downstairs. And I don't know why we didn't just buy two, but... So it looks nice and neat and tidy, but always great to be with you, Tyler, here in the studios of Civic Center TV in West Bloomfield. As a reminder, we're here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon, live here in the studios, but then you can always catch rebroadcast of the show on cable access TV, $15 and $99, or you can just go to civiccentertv.com, click on Megacast or the on-demand section to catch the individual interviews. Not gonna lie, when I saw the Royal Oak Leprechauns on our list of guests today, I was totally thinking, I don't know, like children's playroom or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't know. I had not heard of the Royal Oak Leprechauns either. I was just feeling lucky that we had them.
Like Lucky Charms.
Exactly.
Sure. Actually, Lucky Charms, they're doing a big promotion right now with the new Loki movie that's coming out on Marvel.
Also didn't know that.
So if you can get your hands on a box of those Lucky Charms, you're going to, don't open the box.
Oh.
Don't eat the cereal because it's going to be worth a lot of money.
Okay.
But the other lucky leprechauns right here in our backyard, the Royal Oak Leprechauns. With us now, let's bring in Mark Sackett with us. So he's the general manager. Do you get that a lot, Mark? Who are the leprechauns?
Who are the leprechauns? You know what? Probably not in my world. So. But we are trying to get our name out there quite a bit, and we've had some success with it, so it's good. But yeah, we're any kind of like a minor league baseball team. They've always got goofy names, and so here we are at the Leprechauns, kind of a goofy type name, but hopefully it's catching on.
I think it's a great name, and I will say I was like with my husband, who, he's a sports guy, and I'm like, hey, I'm interviewing the Leprechauns this morning. He just looks at me like, yeah, girl. Hope you find that pot of gold.
That's right. Bring it home.
But I love that. So for those such as myself that weren't familiar with the Leprechauns, you guys are a great team.
Well, we're okay right now. We're 2-1, and this is actually our 4th year of operation. So, and our 1st year in Royal Oak, and that's probably why a lot of people haven't heard about us.
So you support college baseball.
Exactly. Yeah. So guys who play college baseball, and there's some kids who are still playing right now. They're in the national tournaments at different levels. They've got to do something to hone their skills, to keep their skills up over the summertime. Just like high school players, when they're playing their high school game, when they're done with their high school season, they play summer baseball. Well, that's what we are. The Royal Oak Leprechauns are part of a league that is sponsored by Major League Baseball, and we are there for the college kids to come to us and play a high level of baseball.
So with that, Mark, I'm going to turn the interview over to Tyler, because he is really our sports buff, because I'm going to be asking you about, your uniform, and are you going to get tutus or something to sell to the crowd? Hey, I could be their marketing person. I see the marketing possibilities all day and all night with this team.
Yeah, plenty of them. So Mark, you had said Mark Sackett joined us, of course, on the show, general manager of the Royal Oak Leprechauns with us here. You said this is the 4th year of operation for the team overall. First, of course, here in the local area in Royal Oak. Where did the team play before?
So the team started, we were based out of Adrian, Michigan, and that's kind of in the Irish Hills area. So what's in the Irish Hills area besides MIS is the Leprechauns, right? Irish Hills Leprechauns. So we were the Irish Hills Leprechauns. Our first season was 2016. So we operated in 2016, 17, and 18 there. We were not getting a very good crowd draw. We need to have the people to show up so that we can help fund our team. Our team cost about $50,000 to $60,000 just for an 8-week summer program. So we weren't getting it there. We took a year off. COVID took a year off as well. And we wanted to move the team to Royal Oak. And we just thought we'd keep the same name, Leprechauns. And we have a great location. So that's kind of why we're in our 4th year right now.
Mark Sackett with us on the show. He is the general manager of the Royal Oak Leprechauns. It is a summer collegiate baseball team, and they are playing in the Great Lakes Summer Collegiate League here in Royal Oak. So of all the places that you could move the team to, what ultimately led to the decision to move the Leprechauns from the Adrian area to Royal Oak specifically?
Right. It's a good question. So I live in the Oakland County area. I grew up in Birmingham, and my dad was a high school coach at Birmingham Seahome. I still live in the area. I teach in Troy, so it's my full-time job in Troy. So I'm from this area. And when we wanted to move the team out of Adrian and move it to somewhere else, we looked at Berkeley, we looked at Avondale, we looked at Clawson, we looked at places that would be a crowd draw, and we had to have lights for our team, because all of our games are played at 7 o'clock at night. They're all 9-inning games. They're all wood bat. So it's very similar to like a major league deal. So we had to find a location that would accommodate that. And when we went to the different cities and everything, Royal Oak was just so welcoming. The Parks and Rec director is the one that really said this would be a great fit. We knew it would be a great fit. But it was really the Royal Oak, the city situation there, where they were so, please come and join us. And so there we were. So they had a field that was very tired and very old in Memorial Park, but it's at 13 Mile and Woodward, obviously a very busy place. The field needed a lot of renovation, and I felt I could raise the money to do that. And also hopefully get the money, or we could get the money from our crowd to help pay back some of our debt. And so that's what we did. And then we started looking for the money and get ready for the improvements to the field. And it took us 2 years to do it. But we were able to find one of my former players. I should say former players. He played with us a little bit. He graduated from Birmingham Brother Rice with my two sons. And my two sons graduated from Birmingham Groves. And now he currently plays for the New York Yankees. And that guy's DJ LeMahieu. And DJ said he wanted to get involved, and he said, I'll help you out with the money. I'll loan you the money. You get it going. You run it until I'm ready to retire, and then I'll take it from there, basically. Yeah. So he was there.
Yeah, and that's really a great story here, is having a guy that moved into the local area in middle school, has been through the system coming up into professional baseball from our local area to then provide support as this team moves into the local area. Mark Sackett joining us on the program. He is the general manager of the Royal Oak Leprechauns, playing their first season in the Great Lakes Summer Collegiate League here in Oakland County. Just moved to Royal Oak and renovated the park at Memorial Park. So among the renovations, you said it was a very tired field and needed a lot of changes. The help that came from DJ LeMahieu, of course, of the New York Yankees, and your team's renovations, what did change at Memorial Park that people can expect when they go to see a Leprechauns baseball game?
Yeah, the biggest change is definitely the playing surface. It's all turf. So we're never going to get rained out unless it's just pouring down rain and lightning and everything. But it's an all turf infield, natural grass in the outfield. That was the biggest change and the most expensive change. We also put new dugouts on the field, and the dugouts now hold about 30 guys, up to 30 guys. They're large dugouts. Because DJ's helped with the field, we were able to invest in a couple other things. We put a brand new scoreboard up. We hope to turn that into a video scoreboard, but right now it's just a nice 10-inning scoreboard. We put seat backings on all the benches and on the bleachers, so that made it real nice there. And and that's really it. We also have a temporary outfield fence, but nothing special there. The biggest things though that people will see the turf infield, and they'll see the seating, the comfortable seating for the people, and of course the larger dugouts. So it's pretty nice, and a scoreboard is great.
Mark Sackett joining us on the Oakland County Megacast, the general manager of the Royal Oak Leprechauns. And Mark, you had said earlier on that, of course, with COVID-19's impact on the league and impact on baseball, that baseball did, much like COVID had forced other sports leagues to take some time off. It did cause a year off in your league. How has this season, coming back now that things are back in person and players are able to play regularly on the field like they always have with baseball, how has that impacted the players specifically?
Well, a lot of these guys are still, they played their college season already, so they're good to go. It's good quality baseball what we do. So I don't see any impact on the players there. Some of these kids got a bonus year of college to go back and play an additional year because of the COVID. They took the COVID year off. But otherwise, we played 3 games so far. We're 2-1. Guys are doing great. They're loving being out there. They love the field. And it's just, again, we've received a ton of support so far. So I really don't. The only impact we saw was just an off year from baseball completely last summer. So good.
Yeah, and that's really good to hear that the players are taking the positive impact from being back here. Of course, having that extra training, that's what a lot of these players do to get that extra training, get that extra game in over the off season from their college ball. How have you seen over your time with the Royal Oak Leprechauns, both now, of course, in Royal Oak and previously in the other location, the impact that it has had on those players that maybe are on the cusp of playing at a higher level, and now with all this extra training and extra baseball, being able to be seen by more people, how does that impact them having played in this league?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that have happened here, and that from I guess you could say the COVID impact, and that really is the fact that these guys who were maybe they were juniors in for the 2020 year. COVID canceled their season, so they were given us another year. So because those juniors given another year, that made the sophomores and everyone else given an extra time. So it really allowed their bodies to develop even more, bigger, stronger, faster, for those kids that were really committed to developing and training themselves to get better. Some kids, struggled with it mentally, as a lot of people did mentally, and just finally said, you know what? I'm done with baseball. I'm going to go on with my career and start moving into their whatever their education, their major was from an education standpoint. So, I think it helped. It helped some kids, and it made some kids really rethink what their goals were for their baseball careers.
Mark Sackett joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the general manager for the Royal Oak Leprechauns. And having moved into Royal Oak, you've played 3 games so far this season. What has been the fan response locally as they have a new baseball team there in the city of Royal Oak?
Yeah. Well, Memorial Park holds the seating holds about 600, which is not that big. We got probably about 200, really about 150 to 200 general admission. So you think maximum of 800. Well, we had our opening night Saturday night, and it was absolutely crazy. We were very warmly welcomed. We had well over 800 people there. They were all around the stadium, looking at all the new things, and it was really special. It really caught us off guard, but it made us work very hard to bring them a good baseball product, but more importantly, to bring them good entertainment, because that's what we're really about. The college players, they're going to play, but we try to do all the in-game excitement. We have different contests, a crazy bat race. We have different giveaways. We're throwing balls into the stands. We're really trying to make it fun for people, so it's not a golf match type thing or watching paint dry. We want to bring a lot of fun and excitement to it. So we have food trucks there that are we bring a lot of youth teams out. The youth teams come out and they get to go on the field with the players. They get to run the bases at night. So it's a lot more fun than just a baseball game going on.
Well, Mark, we appreciate you joining us today on the program to talk about the Royal Oak Leprechauns. For those that are interested and they want to see some of this great summer college baseball, where can they find more information on the team?
Yeah, definitely at our website, leprechaunball.com, leprechaunball.com, if you can spell that. We have a Facebook page, and we do a lot of our promotions, obviously, on social media. That'd be the best part, but get out to the ballpark. It'd be $5 to get in, $7 for a reserved seat. We've got everything from soda to beer to White Claw to whatever else we need to keep you amused during the game. And I think what you're going to find is a really fun family experience at 13 Mile and Woodward at Royal Oak Memorial Park.
Well, Mark, we appreciate you joining us on today's program. More information at leprechaunball.com. Mark, thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mark Sackett with us, the general manager for the Royal Oak Leprechauns here on the Megacast. We'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're transitioning from sports to entertainment. We'll be speaking with a comedian next here on the Oakland County Megacast.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line, for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior.
These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance.
They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different.
One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games?
Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Great to have you with us here on the Megacast. Tyler, I feel like the last year or 15 months of my life has been nothing more than a lot of material for some stand-up comics.
Yeah, definitely plenty of, definitely a lot to consider when putting together some new material for our comedians out there.
But what's it like for a real comic? And where do they get their material right now? Because you don't have crowds in front of you. So with that, let's bring in comedian Corey Kahaney. She is an award-winning comedian. And, we're so great to have you with us. But we don't usually get big stars such as yourself.
Oh, well, I think you may be confusing me with the person that I look like. I know I'm not actually that famous, but can you tell who I look like?
Who do you look like?
I look like Bruce Jenner before he transitioned to Caitlyn Jenner. Seriously, take a look at the profile. Yeah.
I see it in the profile.
Yeah. Anytime someone says, "Are you famous?" I'm like, "Well, my doppelganger is famous." But in answer to your question before, we weren't using the audience to get our material. We get our material from our life and then we deliver it to the audience. So actually, the pandemic has been a boomtown of comedy, if you ask me.
We recently had Mark Ridley on earlier this week with Comedy Castle here in Royal Oak, and my girlfriend performed there when they first reopened, and it was just so good to be back around people. But what's it been like to be a comedian that's trying to do shows virtually?
Well, it was love it or leave it, and I found that I enjoyed the Zoom format. It was a learning curve. I had to change my material to bring it much more into a conversational kind of cadence, whereas on stage there's you have a much bigger. You can do things like you can vamp and go like that, and that'll get a laugh. But on Zoom, people just think that's weird that you're doing that. So it was once I learned the tricks, and I began to appreciate the intimacy of it, because let's face it, I'm performing for people right in their homes, and they really needed to laugh. So it was a win-win in many ways, and I enjoyed sort of doing the crowd work, looking at all the boxes, and Mrs. Smith, why is your apartment so dark? Are you developing film in there? Or look at the stuffed bear head on this guy's wall. And so it was a lot of fun in many ways. But now that I'm back in the clubs, I have to tell you, it is a grind to get back on Zoom.
You're like, hey, wait. So people made fun of me in the beginning because I like to see how everyone's house is decorated. What's behind them?
Of course.
And they act like you're weird. I'm like, no, I'm not a, peeking. I'm not a peeping Tom. I'm looking. It's in their background. They put it in their background for a reason, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you wanted us to see nothing, just put your camera in front of a blank wall. But if you're showing me, 200 plates from traveling across the United States, seriously, I have seen some crazy stuff, like that. I'm going to comment on it, but invariably, I always try to keep it, I try to be a good sport. I never want to be cruel.
So with that, what is the craziest thing you've seen in the background? Because you have to make it a part of your act at that point.
I'm telling you, we really did have one home that had so many big game heads on the wall, like so many, and like hanging down in the camera view was antlers that were a light fixture. So it was every so often I'd be like, I'd be like, can we just see your AK-47? That kind of thing. It was crazy.
Because as a comedian, what's it like? Because you have a routine, you sit down, you actually write it out, and you practice it. But then in a situation like that, you're kind of going off script and ad-libbing. So do you think this has kind of made you a better comedian throughout the pandemic?
It's made me a better ad-libber. Those are not always hand in hand. I was always a very material-driven comedian. Like I didn't need to go into the audience to get a joke to work. I could pull on the audience like an orchestra if I wanted them to, sort of come with me on a joke. But I was never a crowd worker, as they say, until now. And the funny thing is, I don't think people are used to the transition. I performed last night and I was telling a joke and somebody yelled something out and this woman said, "He's very smart." And I said, who are you talking about? And she said, "The guy that just yelled out." And I said, "Oh, and what's your relationship?" And she said, "That's my son-in-law." And I said, "I'm a little uncomfortable that you're that enamored by your son-in-law. There seems to be a little disconnect there. I mean, I like my son-in-law, but I'm thrilled when he doesn't show up at a family function." And I realized she'd been going to Zoom shows where you can, talk back and forth to the audience, I mean, it was a great moment on stage and everybody laughed because I was basically saying, you're a little pervy, ma'am.
Corey Kahaney with us here on the Megacast. She's a comedian. Also, we should note, I think most people would also know you from The Last Comic Standing. What was it like to be a part of a reality TV show like that?
Well, we're going back 15 years.
Has it been that long?
It has. You know why? I was pregnant right after we came out of the show, we went on tour and I was pregnant for the whole tour. So, and I have the proof, the remote learning next to me, which by the way, remote learning, not even remotely interesting. Anyway.
How are you at 5th grade math?
No, 16. He's 16.
Oh my gosh.
No, that math? No, this is my attitude towards his actual math now. I go, "Oh, looks like you got it." Because no idea. Being on Last Comic Standing, I'll jump to the results of it, not so much the experience of it. My life changed dramatically. I went from, let me tell you about Corey Kahaney to when do you want Corey Kahaney? And that was a really wonderful thing. So I'm always going to be grateful for that.
I like how you left it at that. Yeah. Like that natural pause.
By the way, I have been on so many reality shows. I mean, I have really, I should have learned my lesson. Like I accidentally was on The Apprentice. I signed up to be on Next Food Network Star, and I was like the first one kicked out. So believe me, I have bitten the reality show bug, and I have drank from the nectar, and I've had my fill.
You're like, I'm over that now. Corey Kahaney with us here on the Megacast, and we should mention the reason why we are even lucky enough to have you on the show is that you're going to be headlining a show for the National Council of Jewish Women here in Michigan called Raising Laughter, and we've had them on the show numerous times talking about so many of their great community programs that they have. How'd you get involved in this project?
They reached out to me, and it was last night, and we had a great time.
a Zoom cocktail hour?
I'm sorry, that's the problem. See, comedians are too honest. I could have just said, "Oh, I'm looking forward to it," and let you go with it. But I'm like, no, I'm too honest. It was honestly one of the best group of Jewish women I have ever performed for, and we had so much fun. It felt one of those shows where at the end of it, I really wanted to go out and party with them, and that doesn't happen a lot. So I love Michigan audiences. I love Michigan Jews. That's my plug.
So you need to come here in person then and go out and party with them.
If they invited me back, 100%, I couldn't wait. And, I have a kid that's looking at colleges, and of course, Michigan's kind of a desirable school, so who knows?
Well, most definitely you'll have to come. And what does it mean for you, though, as a Jewish woman, to have organizations such as this? Because we do know that we're in the middle of coming out of a pandemic, but also there's a lot of hatred right now. And, some of that is unfortunately geared towards some of our other groups, such as the Jewish community.
And the Asian community.
Yeah, and to have someone such as yourself be, a person who can laugh at things as well, but also share a part of your heritage.
Right now I am constantly being, looked at like, what is your statement about what's going on, and what, how do you feel about all the Jewish hate? And I think the course is to be an example of being someone who behaves properly, makes people laugh, doesn't bend to the pressure, and stands firm in my culture. Like, I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm Jewish. I'm funny, and we have a lot of things that are quirky. But I don't mind when people make fun of the quirky part of being Jewish. What I mind is when people go too far, if as it were,
But do you also find it's a good way to open up the conversation about being Jewish is, surrounding it in laughter, because it makes people more comfortable.
No doubt. And I was just in Provo, Utah. I know, bragging. And I performed, there. And I was like, I don't know that I'm going to even say I'm Jewish, but at a certain point, it just slipped out. And I could see everybody's eyes get wide, like, "Ooh, teach us about your people." And it was like, okay, we'll do it. And I think part of it is because I'm a middle-aged lady now. Nobody's looking at me, to date. So, I'm kind of like, think of me as your aunt or the quirky teacher.
You're a safe zone.
Yeah. So I made it appealing, and I also showed it how similar all families are. All parents would rather that their daughter marry better. All parents want their kids to finish college. All parents want you to call home more. It's not that Jewish, if you know what I mean.
So with that, do you think you're going to kind of continue to hopefully do virtual shows, or are you done? You want to get back on stage? Think about the traveling. It's not as fun as when you're in your 20s, right?
Oh, yeah. But you know what? Let's put it this way. If I could have a healthy hybrid balance of both, I'd be very happy. I really would. I mean, last night I went out and I did 2 shows, and I was like so thrilled, because when you do 2 shows and you've gone out and you've gotten dressed and you've done all that, then you feel entitled to the ice cream at the end of the night. Whereas I was having the ice cream without earning it before.
Hey, in the middle of a pandemic, everyone earns ice cream.
By the way, I gained the COVID-12, and this will be an interesting, this ties everything up. I did my ancestry DNA, and I don't beat myself up for that gain anymore, because I found out that I am a direct descendant of one of the lost tribes of Israel, the Cellulites. And when you're a Cellulite, people are doing DNA testing on their dogs. Can you believe that? Yeah. Like, it's $170. I'm like, just Venmo me and I'll tell you.
I'm actually trying to talk my husband into that, because we have a new rescue dog. He goes, what difference does it make?
I'm like, do you think there's going to be like a moment where Elizabeth Warren and it's like, oh, we just found out at 1% Cherokee? I mean, come on. There's a little Chihuahua, there's a little Doberman, there's a little bit of Labrador. I can just tell you. I'll look at it and tell you.
So with that, Corey, can I ask you, what programs do you have coming up?
Oh, okay.
Any shows?
Well, let me first plug something that anybody can watch anytime on YouTube. I have a TED Talk that I gave that that's really sort of a deviation for me. It's a little bit serious, and it sort of addresses domestic violence, and I'm really proud of that. So if anybody wants to tune in and see my range, you can go to YouTube and look up my TED Talk, and I have my website's CoreyKahaney.com. CoreyKahaney.com, and you're like, how do we spell that? Any version of Corey Kahaney will get you there because there's nobody with that name.
That is true. And your podcast? Are you still doing the podcast?
No, I'm not still doing the podcast. I do a monthly online show called the Ruthless Comedy Hour in honor of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and it's very it's very fun, very feminist, very political. I don't know if everybody is into that, but we have a lot of fun. We don't hold back. And that's also available on CoreyKahaney.com. You can always find out about that then.
We so appreciate your time with us today.
I so enjoyed speaking with you.
Thanks again. Corey Kahaney with us here on the Megacast. That's going to wrap it up for the Tuesday edition. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m.